The Timeline is a Blue Wire podcast. Welcome to the Timeline of Phoenix Suns podcast. My name is Mike, here with Sam. Sam, how are you doing?
Hello. I am good. The regular season is over, and it's officially grind time. People are probably wondering if we're going to talk about the Clippers series extensively on this episode. The answer is no. That will come in a couple of days because we have some business to take care of first. But there will be, rest assured, there will be multiple main feed episodes this week. And we're going to start pumping them out really fast. So, yeah, I'm good. Playoffs are here.
Yeah, it's the end of the season, the weirdest season, and that means that we have to go over the over-unders that we worked on before the season even began, which feels like 10 years ago at this point. And that means we're joined by former host of the 7 Seconds or Less, former and occasional host of the 7 Seconds or Less podcast, and unofficial lawyer of the Timeline podcast, our friend Max McCauley. Max, how are you doing?
I'm doing well, thank you. I feel like I'm the official lawyer at this point. I don't know. But
I didn't want to. I wanted to say that. Admittedly, I wanted to say it, but I was going to let you do it instead.
Right, I give you consent from now on.
Wait until we need to actually use you for something, Max, before you claim that title.
I need some payment first before I actually get that title, I think. But no, I'm really excited. I can't wait to find out how I did on my TJ Warren over-unders today.
Yeah, that was one thing we did not predict. Funny enough, but yeah, I mean, at one point or another, we may have had a TJ Warren over-under when we did a podcast 4 years ago or so. Yeah, I should have went back and checked that one. At that point, it probably would have been over-under 20 points per game per season, and not anymore. But yeah, I went back and I looked through all of them. If this is the first time you're hearing this kind of thing, I'll explain it a little bit. Before the season begins, I mostly make up over-unders for the team. One of them, for the wins, it's always like one of the official over-unders that one of the sports books actually puts out. But the rest of them, I just make up out of whole cloth. And then the three of us, I think this is our fourth or fifth year in a row, we'll just guess what it's going to be. And I'll go over what each of them are. And then the whole season progresses. At the end of the season, we come together, we tally them all up together, and we figure out who did the best. Generally, if I'm being frank, we all do bad. Gambling is hard. Basketball is not very predictable. And and you'll see what I like about these episodes is that they do a really great job in showing how expectations change what feels like slowly over the course of the season, but then you get to the end of the season and the expectations have changed so dramatically. And I think this does a great job of illustrating that. So are you guys ready? We can go right into it and figure it out.
Let's do it.
I'm ready.
All right, here we go. And it starts off with they're all going to be a little bit funny, but it starts off with a funny one right off the bat. Cameron Johnson, points per game. Points per game, 14 points per game was what the over-under was set at. And last season, he scored 12.5 points per game. And I think with these ones, with the guys that are gone, because there's one for Mikal Bridges as well, I think we just go off of their points per game, based on their new team. I think Cameron Johnson's role, I'm not sure how much it changed going over to the Nets, but 14 points was the goal. His actual points per game this season, 15.5, and all of us went over. So we all got that one right. So Max, you went over. Sam, you went over. I went over. And the listeners, that's the other part that I forgot to mention. The listeners fill out a survey, and I take the highest votes on each side, and I mark those and see if the listeners have an opportunity to beat us. They also took over, which listeners tend to do on most things. And yeah, 15.5 points per game. Max, since the last time you were on the podcast, we traded Cameron Johnson and Mikal Bridges for Kevin Durant. feel free to use this as the opportunity to talk about that, as well as your impression of those two guys on the Nets.
Well, first thing I'll say is maybe we should end the podcast here. We're all geniuses, 100%. Listeners and us. Got it all.
There's only a few, I think.
I was very much in the camp of you have to make that deal. I mean, I know we gave up a ton, and the way Mikal's played since is not only a little tough, but also it makes you think like, man, could we have traded maybe a little less picks since Mikal's this good? But yeah. I mean, I think the one thing that's really helped, other than the warm-up injury, which was unfortunate, is that Kevin Durant's just been everything possibly advertised. He's been unbelievable. Him having that game winner in his third game, I think, helped a lot with the whole trade and to win everybody over. At this point, I haven't really met a Suns fan or talked to a Suns fan who isn't happy about the trade. It's just having Kevin Durant will have that effect on you, I think.
I've met a couple who are still skeptical, weirdly.
Oh, yeah?
Yeah, they do exist. I mean, I would reckon that even some of the listeners, they still do exist out there. But no, I mean, Cam is interesting because like you said, Mike, I don't think his role has really changed much in Brooklyn. I feel like the guy we really have to talk about a little bit more is Mikal Bridges, because just who saw that coming? Mm-hmm. Cam, his points went up by like 2 or 3 points per game, but his shots also went up, his minutes went up. I think he's more or less the same player. I am really excited to see him and Mikal brace a bigger role in their first playoff series against the Sixers, even if, and let me know if you agree with this, Max, they probably don't stand a chance in that first round series against the Sixers, but it will be fun to watch, and I will be tuning in for as many of those games as possible.
Yeah, no, they don't have a chance. I don't know how they're going to guard Embiid, which you can say about a lot of teams. The other thing, it'll be really interesting to see how Mikal plays in this series, because it's a different thing being the number one guy in the regular season to being the number one guy in the playoffs, especially since he's so new to it. I'll be interested. I mean, obviously rooting for him. I hope he's awesome, but it's going to be a challenge.
Yeah, I agree, and I think what they would need is for James Harden just to fall apart, which he tends to do in the playoffs at times. That's the only way they could do it. But just for reference, just to talk about Cameron Johnson here, in 21-22, so the last full season he played for the Suns, which was 66 games, so he played most of the season. He came off the bench, averaged 12.5 points per game. On the season, over both his time in Phoenix and Brooklyn, he's averaging 15.5, which is why he hit the over there. In Phoenix, he averaged 13.9, which the over-under was set once again at 14. And I do think he would have probably hit that over if he stayed in Phoenix. He was playing well before the trade. In Brooklyn, he averaged 16.6 points per game and went up in his minutes. I think one of the reasons his minutes were relatively low in Phoenix, 25 minutes per game, because he played 8 games and then was injured, and then the other 8 games he played, or 9 games he played in Phoenix, was coming back from that injury where he was played less minutes than he normally would have. But his 3-point percentage in Phoenix, 45%, and in Brooklyn, 37%. So it went down pretty dramatically in that Brooklyn offense, and I think, some of that is just weird number variance and luck and things like that, but I think some of the credit does go to the way Phoenix sets up guys, with Chris Paul in particular, and also Devin Booker and Cameron Johnson had this really crazy connection where those passes from Devin Booker were always to Cam when he was wide open, and he made a lot of those. But what have you thought about Cam Johnson in Brooklyn? You have any thoughts on that, Max?
He's gotten kind of overshadowed by Mikal because Mikal's broken out so much. As you said, he's been pretty consistently the same guy. I actually didn't know that discrepancy in the 3-point percentage. That's interesting. I think you're probably right. It's mostly just shooting variance, but maybe a little bit role change and not having the same kind of guard play to set him up. But I will say, hearing that 45% from 3 Suns for Cam Johnson, man, would have been nice if we could have held on to him in that trade, huh? yeah. And just one of those guys would have made such a huge difference. Yeah. Just with defense. And he's going to be a free agent. I think this is the interesting thing with Cameron Johnson. And, it's not a conversation that we necessarily need to have in the offseason as Suns fans anymore. But, at the beginning of the season, I was anticipating this year defining his free agency. And it still does. Of course, he's still a free agent, restricted free agent in Brooklyn. And I think it's going to be interesting to see what ends up happening with that. Sam, do you have any thoughts on his impending free agency?
Yeah, I think they're going to pay him. What do they have to lose? Even if it locks them into this kind of path of mediocrity for a little while, I think they gain nothing by letting him walk. So if he wants $20 million, and I don't know exactly what the final figure is going to be, but I think they're just going to pay him.
Yeah.
Yeah, well, and the other
luxury
thing too is
of having
even if they
Mikal on
don't-
that contract.
Sorry, yeah. If they don't pay him, someone else will. Sometimes with these RFAs, like Colin Sexton was one. It's like they're weird players who don't fit very well very many places. But Cam Johnson's not that. A lot of teams are going to want him.
Yeah, that's an excellent point. He can just sort of fit anywhere. But yeah, I think they can afford him because, like I said, Mikal's on a contract that's like, for what his production was in Brooklyn, which was like 25 points per game or whatever. We'll get to it. I don't have it in front of me. Yeah, he's making like, $22 million a year or whatever it's going to average out to be. And yeah, the luxury of having a star player that's playing like a superstar level on that level of a contract, you can probably afford to even overpay Cameron Johnson a little bit to keep him, even if you end up trading him down the road. So hopefully he stays healthy. That's the big thing with Cam Johnson. He did have knee surgery this year. What a weird season. This was the weirdest season for Phoenix. It started out best team in the league. Cameron Johnson gets injured, still pretty good. Devin Booker gets injured, worst team in the league. Devin Booker comes back, look pretty good. Trade for Kevin Durant. Now all of a sudden you're a contender. Kevin Durant rolls his ankle in pregame warm-up. They look pretty bad for a while, and now he's back and they're a contender again. Roller coaster of a season for the Suns. All right, next one here. We got a few DeAndre Ayton ones. And the first one is DeAndre Ayton minutes per game. And I set the line at 31 minutes per game.
Nice.
And he came in at 30.5 minutes per game. Max, you said over. Sam, you said over. I said under. And the listeners said over. So I was the only one to get that one right.
So you should
this was
start
kind of the year.
with your justification, because I don't remember why you said under.
I was trying to point out just the fact that he doesn't usually play more than 30 minutes a game, or last season he was under 30 minutes a game. He usually averages around 30 minutes per game, and the question was posed from the perspective of, can he handle more, or will this be the season where he's able to handle more, under the assumption that Chris Paul starts falling off a little bit, which did happen. And it didn't really manifest that way. He did average a minute more than last season. There was a stretch of the season where he was essentially, quote unquote, our star player, and it didn't look good. Now the team is it just didn't look good. He can't handle that. He scored some points, but the team was terrible. The team came back together once he sort of slotted into his role a little bit better. I think he helped the defense much more than he was previously, and he could still be a contributing player on a good team. But as far as I guess the way to frame this question, because we're going to talk about DeAndre Ayton overall, we have two more on him. This was his first year as a max player, And Max, what did you think about that?
I thought it was definitely his first year being paid as a max player.
Yeah, that's probably the right way to put it.
Here's what I'll say. I mean, what I'm hanging my hat on and what I'm hoping for is that we're going to get the Ayton from 2 years ago in the playoffs, 2021 Ayton. And, even a little bit, I mean, the Mavericks series was tough last year, but the Pelicans series he was very good in, largely because he couldn't miss a shot. But the defensive effort that he was giving in the 2021 playoffs, pretty much throughout. I mean, the finals got a bit tough because they just got worn down by Giannis. But is that guy going to show up again? Because that guy has been completely absent, at least for months. And I think we're absolutely going to need that guy. Especially, obviously, we're assuming we take care of the Clippers, we're on a collision course with Jokic. And one of the big reasons we destroyed the Nuggets was the fact that Ayton kind of neutralized Jokic. Is he going to do that again? Because the Ayton from the last couple of months does not look like he's ready to do that again. But, it's the playoffs. Maybe he's going to bring it again. I don't know.
I feel optimistic that he's going to bring it. I think if you're talking about that specific matchup against the Nuggets, Jokic is so much better than he was 2 years ago, arguably. Mm-hmm. I mean, he's like, just the numbers, he's so much more efficient. He'll kill Ayton anyway. He just will. Now, that doesn't mean that Ayton is not still one of the best possible players to throw at Jokic in single coverage when he's locked in the entire NBA. It's just going to be such a tough matchup no matter what. Mike, do you want me to comment on minutes here, or are we talking about like Ayton the overall season, or?
Well, let's do the next one, and you can comment on both. But I'll just say this one because I have a question to ask you guys too. And I don't want to make this like a really negative DeAndre Ayton one, but I do think this is the time. The regular season's over. It's the time to examine the regular season. Now, DeAndre Ayton has the opportunity. I'm not going to take that away from him. He has the opportunity to just really exceed in the postseason and become someone that he really has not yet been this season. So I just want to say that. But we do have to take this opportunity to examine his season as a whole and talk about it. So I want to do that. But the next one we had was over-under for points per game, and I set it at 18.5, which is about 1.3 points more than the previous season. He came in exactly 18 points per game this season. So that was under. All of us, including the listeners, took the over. So all of us missed on that one. You know, basically the exact same points per game. You know, 17.2 to 18. So it did go up just a little bit, less than 1 point per game. But yeah, go ahead, Sam. You had something to say about DeAndre Ayton there.
Well, no, I guess if we're talking about points now, the thing about points with DeAndre Ayton is, okay, he could have averaged 20. He could have averaged 22, 23, and like 12 rebounds, but the team wouldn't have been better for it. So do we really care if he averaged 18
There was a
points
stretch where it would have helped.
I don't know. I mean, but for the most part, now that he's
23 points is a lot.
Yeah, but 23 points on 55% true shooting and and look, I'm not trying to take anything away from Ayton. So much of his offensive game is still going to be important in the playoffs. It's still very jarring when suddenly you have to start a guy like Bismack Biyombo, who all credit to Bismack Biyombo. I think he was tremendous this season in many ways, but when you suddenly insert a guy into your offense where he can't beat mismatches at all. He can't play out of the short roll. He's shooting 35% from the free throw line. Like, the floor is much, much, much lower than what DeAndre Ayton gives us every night, and we do take for granted Ayton's offensive production in a lot of ways. The mismatch killer aspect of his game is going to come into play in every single playoff series, and I think for the most part he's ready for it. But you just don't need him to score 20 points per game. 22 points per game necessarily. As we've seen now that the team has Kevin Durant, it doesn't make them a better team if Ayton does that.
Right. He has a whole different role. What are your thoughts on his points per game, Max?
Yeah, that's very interesting, Sam, because I agree with everything you're saying. At the same time, I think it's kind of embarrassing he couldn't get above that over-under given the health situation of the Suns this year. Like, he probably should have gotten above that. But at the same time, it doesn't really matter, and it's not what we should be focusing on in the playoffs. I don't even care how much he scores at all. He just needs to play defense and really just stay on the court. Because you touched on it a bit with Biyombo, but I am definitely nervous about our backup center situation in the playoffs. I like Landale. I think in the playoffs, there's somebody who's going to get targeted. As you pointed out, Bismack Biyombo is not exactly an exceptional offensive player, I wouldn't say. He's awesome defensively.
It's hard because both of them have really been rock solid all season long, and they're on, I think it's important to stress, two guys on minimum contracts.
Mm-hmm,
so
exactly.
They've given us more than we could have expected all season, but both of them just have such an obvious weakness as we head into the playoffs. I really don't know who Monty's going to end up playing out of the two of them, between Landale and Biyombo. I don't know who's going to get the minutes.
It probably should be matchup dependent, I think. But yeah, I don't know. It's going to be tough. I hope I'm wrong. I am very nervous about Landale in the playoffs. He just seems like the kind of guy who teams are going to attack. I just think
if you want to run the offense the same way, 48 minutes per game, except maybe, give or take, like sometimes you could play small ball 5. We'll see maybe if Kevin Durant at the 5 ever happens in the playoffs. But for the most part, 46, 47 minutes out of the game, you're trying to run the offense the same way. Jock Landale allows you to do that. He allows you to keep your offense consistent. And so, I don't know, but Biz averages 6 blocks per 36 or whatever. So that's an asset too. It's hard to make a decision.
Yeah, I just imagine a potential series against the Lakers. And it's like, good God, like Jock Landale has no chance of staying out there. He'll just get targeted.
Yeah. It's we do have a Jock Landale one, interestingly, but actually let's cover the last one for DeAndre, and then I want to ask you both a question about him to try to frame the way I think about his season on the whole, because the last one we had, and this one's interesting, DeAndre in free throws attempted per game, the line was set at 3. And when I looked at Basketball Reference said he took exactly 3 per game. So I said, well, that's probably not exact. I took the number, divided it by the games played, and it came out to exactly 2.98.
Wow.
Incredible.
So just under. He's never averaged more than 3 free throw attempts per game. And that includes this season, even if it says 3 free throw attempts per game. Let's see. Both of you took the over. Me and the listeners took the under.
The listeners took the under.
It was as close. It's close to a push. It's close to a push that we've ever had, because it's 0.02 away from being the exact number where nobody would have won, and I got it more exact there. And I think even your I haven't gone back and listened. I just assume that even both of your overs were tentative.
I think we were just grasping.
Ayton.
We were grasping at something.
You're just like,
but look,
3 isn't that much, it's that kind of thing. My question to both of you is, go ahead, Sam.
Just no one can accuse Max and I of having been negative or pessimistic on that episode. We both wanted Ayton to hit the over on points and free throws. We both said over on those.
And minutes. Tried. I mean, you guys said over on everything.
We fucking tried.
My question is, and we'll just frame it again. Once again, this is his first season getting paid as a Max player, and I consider this a disappointing season for him. And this is the question that I've been asking myself, because I think he was actually really good last season. Was he better at anything this season than last season?
I can't list a single thing off the top of my head.
I haven't looked at like every single shooting split from everywhere over the floor to see if maybe he improved 2% from like one specific spot, but no. Watching eye tests, no way.
I kept track of a lot of the efficiency stats from specific parts of the floor throughout the season, and it was no for the majority of the season. Last season, he was just insanely efficient last season, and was really good. And I think some of the efficiency stuff can just boil down to the stretch that they had without Devin Booker, without Chris Paul. So I'm not going to fault him for that. But what you wanted, what you expected, or what you hoped for as a fan of the Suns is more growth out of him. And I just don't think we saw any this season at all. I think the one case you could make is passing, and his assists did go up a little bit in this last season. You could make a case that his passing got slightly better. But I don't think it got better in any way that really impacts the Suns overall as a team. I think, like I said, and there's probably more pressure on him than anyone outside of Devin Booker and Kevin Durant going into the postseason, because his role is so vital for the Suns' defense to be acceptable. We'll even put it there in the postseason. But I think the pressure for him to perform in this postseason could really actually impact whether or not he's on the team. If he has a mediocre postseason or even a good, not great postseason, there's a chance he doesn't stay, because this is Kevin Durant and this is Devin Booker, and the chances of them winning a title are going to be dependent on him performing. And if he performs like he did on the aggregate throughout this season in the playoffs, that I would consider a bad playoffs for him. So fingers crossed. He's played well like you said, the Dallas series was not great. The Pelican series was good. The previous postseason, when he was going into his restricted free agency, the last 2 postseasons, I think it's important to remember, was when he was going into free agency. Both of those were good. I mean, they had great moments, and so fingers crossed that we get another good performance out of him in the playoffs. I'm not sure the level of faith I have in that. I'm just hoping. I'm hoping very much. Any thoughts on that, Max?
Yeah, one last thing on Ayton's development. I think people kind of look at this as like a cherry on top sort of thing, or a thing that would be nice if he had. I actually think it's really important that he hasn't developed a 3-point shot. It's something that you feel like he could do, just given his touch and such. And we've broken down before, I think, why it seems like his touch doesn't translate to the 3-point line. But that would just change him as a player so much if he was even a moderate threat from out there. You look at guys like Brook Lopez, Jaren Jackson. They can do that, and it makes their offensive game so much more useful in the modern NBA. And I feel like that's something Ayton's got to focus on. It's really kind of unfortunate he hasn't gotten there.
Yeah, if the dribbling's not going to come, which at this point I think you can. I'm not sure it's going to come. I don't have a ton of faith that he's going to be doing crossovers anytime soon. Then something else has to come, and that would be, that could be a game changer. Like on his next contract, for example, if he develops a 3-point shot by that next contract, he'll be in the NBA for a really long time still. Sam, you have any last thoughts on DeAndre Ayton before we move on?
Look, I feel good about where we're at. Just with the playoffs right now. So I don't want to devote too much negative attention or energy towards like what if Ayton doesn't develop this or that right now. But like as I lock in on his progression specifically, I guess it's just all about defense for me. And how can he continue to get more aggressive on defense if that's even possible? How can specifically something we talked about when the Kevin Durant trade happened that we just haven't seen yet because we haven't seen enough minutes logged between the two of them is how can KD's insertion into the Suns' defensive scheme allow DeAndre Ayton to become more aggressive in some of their pick and roll coverages. And we just haven't seen that yet. I hope we see a lot more of it in the playoffs because I really do believe he's capable. Offensively, he is what he is. I just kind of think, I don't know, a 3-point shot would be nice. Like Max said, I continue to sort of consider it a cherry on top. I don't think he's ever going to get better at the seeking out contact for free throws thing. And I think he'll continue to be a mismatch killer on offense with the post hook. But beyond that, I'm not really sure what type of development I'm expecting.
Right. Yeah, I mean, I've said it for years. DeAndre Ayton would benefit more from wanting to be a defensive player of the year than wanting to be a 25-point-per-game scorer. But it is what it is, and I do think I will say that the defense has been better with him on the floor in the second half of the season, the last few months in particular. And, there has been some foul trouble issues with trying the new schemes that you're talking about, Sam, and I hope those don't translate to the playoffs as the whistles get a little looser. But I do think that his defense has improved pretty dramatically from where it was at the beginning of the season, which I can only describe as terrible. So I hope that translates to the postseason. It's very, very important. He seems to know the pressure he's under based on how he's talked about it. All right, Mikal Bridges, points per game 15. I bet you guys can guess. What he hit in this one. He hit the over. Ended the season just over 20 points per game, and that includes just that awful stretch where he was clearly injured. And it was 20.1 points per game. Sam, you and I took over, so we got that one right. Max, you took under.
Man.
And the listeners, this was the most surprising one, took under in this one. And that is, I think, maybe the best example of where our confidence was in Mikal Bridges' offense after the postseason last year, where the Suns needed more offense and he could not give it to them.
We were so down fucking bad after Game 7.
Oof.
I think it's hard to remember at this point now, maybe, but like, to situate exactly where the Suns fan base was at that particular point in time when we were recording these episodes, people were still sad. People were still tuning us out. They weren't tuning into the podcast, even, a lot of people at that point, because they were still so sad about Game 7. And there was no confidence in Ayton and Bridges, especially, I think, as like two guys who failed to step up in the playoffs.
Yeah, and I don't know. I think the interesting thing about Mikal Bridges is you saw the offense improving before he left Phoenix to like a level that we had never seen before. He was calling his own number at the end of games to get game winners. And then it progressed to a point where it's like, holy shit, is he really going to do this every night now? And then you get to Brooklyn, and in Brooklyn, he doesn't have to pass, right? They're asking him just to be a finisher. So he catches the ball. They want him to score. That's how the offense is designed. He's not really someone there to continue to move the ball like he was in Phoenix. It's just go score. And his offense got to even another level. We saw multiple 40-point games. Just a level that we never really thought he was going to see. But within that, it was all in the way that we anticipated it could happen. Because it was always there a little bit. In fact, I'll point this out. Sam, you made a video May 2nd of 2021 called The Offensive Potential of Mikal Bridges and put that on our YouTube channel. We regularly now get comments from Brooklyn Nets fans who find that video and they're like, you were right. Because all of the parts of his game that has translated into him having a bigger role, it was all always there. At least it was after the 2021 season ended. And it just, I think he put it together better and faster at the end of the season than I thought it would happen. Max, what have you thought about the explosion of Mikal Bridges this season?
Yeah, that's interesting. The hardest thing to do when you're projecting players is to figure out if they're going to mentally just kind of get there. You can see all these skills and all these things they can do, and as you guys saw or Sam put together in the video, and as I'm sure we've talked about on here, Dave and I used to talk about, Mikal had all the things. He had the handle where he could get into the lane, and he was the unblockable jumper and the touch. It's just does he have kind of the attitude or sort of whatever the chutzpah is to be that kind of player? And in Phoenix, he didn't. And I don't know if that was just because, Chris Paul and Devin Booker were there, and it's just hard to do that when those guys are there. And it was a little more freeing in Brooklyn. But it's awesome to see, man. I mean, I think, Mikal Bridges, I would guess, has the highest approval rating of any Sun ever when they left the team, at the time they left the team. And, everyone's rooting for him. And it's so fun to see him break out. And I hope it's real. It feels real. I mean, like I said earlier, the playoffs may be tough. It's hard to go into the playoffs as a star for your first time, but it does feel like this is sustainable, and he's going to be this guy, and it's really cool.
I really think you might be right about that. I can't think of another Sun who was as beloved.
They always
people say Hornacek. Right? Yeah. People say Hornacek.
Yeah, I wasn't alive.
He just wasn't as good. Yeah, I don't know. I wasn't around then either. Like, I was alive, but I didn't live in Phoenix. So I
mean, Nash was still loved by the fan base, but he went to the Lakers. So I feel like it's not like we were rooting for that team.
No, I was
I'm rooting. I'm a Brooklyn Nets fan now. I will root for them in the playoffs. And that feels 100%. Different.
Yeah, it's really. I mean, he was beloved here, and it would have been nice to see that. I wonder what would have happened if he played like that throughout the season in Phoenix, if they just would not have made that trade, if they would have tried to, what else they would have tried to do. Because I think in that case, at the very least, Max, you mentioned maybe sending less picks for Kevin Durant. That probably would have been the case if he was averaging over 20 points per game in Phoenix. But yeah, it's just a fascinating thing to think. And I think the other thing it really highlights is just how injured he was when he was playing. Because people were really on him during that stretch because it's when the Suns were bad. And it was clear he was injured if you just watched him play. Like, it was very obvious he wasn't moving right, defensively or offensively. And then once that seemed to heal, he went to another level. And it's interesting to see. Sam and I, we've talked about it. We'd like to do a Nets playoff game on playback too. I think there's going to be a lot of Suns fans watching it. I think it'd be kind of fun to get them all together and watch that one together so we can all sort of root for Mikal together. So at some point in that series, we'll let everyone know if we plan on doing that.
Maybe even game 1 this weekend.
First game,
is that
right?
Saturday?
I think it's the morning game Saturday.
Yeah, I think it's the very first game. If you're up, I'm down.
That's kind of perfect. Yeah, let's do. I'm going to watch that game for sure.
All right.
I'm going to watch way too much basketball over the next.
All right, playback.
The first round is like the best month of my life.
Weekends of the first round are fun because you wake up and you turn on the TV.
Just
and it's
overdose.
All day. It's like Christmas every day.
You know what sucks though? It looks like we're headed to be the night game on Sunday again. I hate being the night game on Sunday.
Dude, fucking tell me about it. You hate being the night game.
I'm sorry. Way worse for you, Sam. Way worse.
But no, I that's the most brutal aspect. Is like, especially when because in the first round that sometimes I'll have those days with like 4 games in a row and like. Yeah, a 10:30 Eastern start time, which is as bad as it gets sometimes, or like 10 o'clock Eastern start time, is just brutal. Even if you get all the way to the finals, they at least push it back to us to 9 p.m., which is like more doable than 10:30. So yeah, it gets pretty rough out here.
Well, Mikal Bridges, happy for him. It'll be interesting to see the relationship that the Suns fans have to him as seasons go on. KD. It still feels weird a little bit that Kevin Durant is on the Suns, to me, at the very least. It's just like every time I see him, I'm like, weird. He's wearing a Suns jersey. I've been watching him for so long. We're going to get used to it, though. And I think we'll get a little more used to Mikal Bridges being another thing, too. Mikal Bridges is not just beloved by Suns fans. I think he may have one of the highest approval ratings of any NBA player considered a star at this point, just league wide. Yep. And at some point, he's gonna have that heel turn where he becomes a bit of a villain. And it'll be interesting to see what. Yeah, it'll be good for him
if he ever wants to be successful. That's how this league operates. You need to make enemies.
Yeah,
not in like a dramatic WWE way, but you know what I mean.
Not like Dylan Brooks, right?
If everyone's not like start punching the cameraman Dylan Brooks. No, not that. But like if everyone is rooting for you, it's because they don't perceive you as a threat. In the NBA, that's just how it works.
Spooky.
Yep.
Jock Landale over under 7.5 points per game. I put this in there, trying to be a sneaky smart person, and I'm the only one who got it wrong. Because I said over, everyone else said under. He scored 6.6 points per game. But coming into the Suns, he averaged 4.9 points per game. I expected there to be a bump because, JaVale averaged 9.2. JaVale was an amazing dunker. Dario Saric, the backup centers for the Suns have a lot of opportunity. The Suns play in an offensive system that takes advantage of their bigs. But yeah, Jock Landale's fine. I expected him to be a little bit better. I think both of them, we talked about it earlier, have been pretty rock solid. Unless you guys have anything to say about Jock Landale, I think we could move on from that one.
I mean, he could be critical in a playoff series. There could be a Jock Landale game in some series along the way where he has like 19 points off the bench and seals a win. That could definitely happen. He's had
or
games
like 5 assists. Like 5 crucial assists when they're trapping Kevin Durant or something like that.
Yeah.
That's something he could do too.
I'll just say, if he hit his damn threes that he took all season long, maybe he would have hit that over on points as well.
Yeah,
but
that's, I think, what I expected
him
him to be better. I did expect him to be better at that. Any Jock Landale thoughts, Max?
Yeah, I will say, kind of in the spirit of the question, you were kind of right in some ways, Mike. I mean, because I remember that. I actually remember that from our podcast, and it was kind of a joke a little bit because he was just kind of like a preseason standout, and no one even knew if he was going to be an actual player for us. And like you guys said, he's been solid. So I kind of feel like he may not have won, on the quantitative part of it, but qualitatively, I feel like he won.
I think that I have been a Jock Landale believer the whole season, and I think he took some really weird, unfair flack. People think he's bad. I'll admit, he has a few plays that look really dumb every game where he thinks he's getting fouled and he doesn't. He just kind of throws it up at the rim. But all the defensive numbers are solid for him across the board throughout the season. He still scores pretty well against switches, which is something that I didn't think he would be as good at as he is. And yeah, if the three-point shot was there, I think he'd be better. Now, the short roll thing I do think is interesting because, look, if they just, we haven't even said this about Biz, but if they just start hacking Biz in the playoffs when he's on the court because he's playing well defensively, he's gone. He's out. We can't play him. We have to move on. Either KD at center or Jock Landale comes in and plays. And Jock Landale can hit his free throws well enough that they're not going to foul him on purpose. And so if he's in there, it's going to be interesting to see how they utilize him because, yeah, I think you're right. He could play a role in the playoffs. But Devin Booker. We got 2 Devin Booker ones. Devin Booker, shots in the restricted area per game. I get real specific with these sometimes, as you can see. 3.5 was the over-under. Max, you said over. The listeners said over, and he hit the over at 3.8. And I think he was probably on track to not hit that over until he got real mad at the refs with about 20 games left in the season and just kind of went at the rim over and over and over again and increased his foul and free throw rate and played really, really well. We have another one on Devin Booker points per game next, but any thoughts on this particular one, Max?
I'm glad that it went over, I'll say. It's something that we absolutely have to do is create more free throws. Obviously, Kevin Durant should help with that, but Devin Booker's the other guy who needs to do that. Now that we have both those guys, we really should not be at the bottom of the league in free throws anymore. We should be at least, in the average range. So, I'm aside even from being right, I'm just happy that it happened.
Any thoughts, Sam?
It's definitely critical. We've talked about rim pressure for years, and yeah, those last 20 games, just to put a number to it, Booker on the season, I think, what did he average here? 6.8 free throws on the season. He averaged almost 8, just a tick under 8 free throw attempts per game in the month of March. He went absolutely ballistic in March, of course, averaged 32 points per game in general. He was making his threes, sort of stopped making his threes a little bit at the very end there in these April games, but in March could not miss from any spot on the floor, and that included putting pressure on the rim and getting to the free throw line. So, we need now a sustained stretch of Booker continuing to play at that level in the playoffs, which doesn't it doesn't necessarily mean to me that he needs to be at that March level of here he is, 30 points per game, 68% true shooting or whatever. You don't necessarily need that when Kevin Durant is also on the floor. But he needs to continue to be aggressive and attack the rim and do so for 20-ish straight games without getting injured. And that's difficult for a guy who has had some issues in the past with the hamstring or the groin, as we saw this season. It's going to be critical that he can stay out there and stay healthy.
You think we're going to lose 4 games, Sam? Hater.
I just threw a random number out there, and then I was thinking about the math afterwards. I was like, 20 games, that's like a finals run, right?
Yeah, 1 game per series. We lose 1 game per series. But I mentioned this stat when we had Kellen, or I had Kellen on the podcast, but this is the highest percentage of shots he's ever taken in his career between 3 and 10 feet. But not the highest in like that 0 to 3 at the rim, like that 0 to 3 feet area, which is how Basketball Reference tracks it. So I find that to be a little interesting, just because I think it shows that he's still getting downhill, but it's kind of pulling up a little early, which I don't necessarily think is bad. Yeah. It does lead to less free throws, but it could potentially lead to less injuries as well. But yeah, would you have to say about that, Sam?
Well, I was going to make a stupid joke. I was going to say that's Damian Lee's range as well. It's a 3 to 3.
Damian Lee has a Euro step.
Realistically, that's the problem with like the entire bench on this team, the entire team in general. But the reason no one on the bench gets free throws is because they all do that. Cam Payne stops short and throws up floaters from 6-7 feet. Landry Shamet does the same thing. None of them like to go all the way and just power through. The one exception being Josh Okogie, who is just the most reckless fucking human being you've ever seen in your life, even with a broken nose or whatever other ailments. Yeah. Doesn't care. But that's why Josh Okogie gets to the free throw line and the rest of these guys don't. So yeah, Book and also KD does the same thing. He'll stop short from 3 to 10 feet, but you can still when you carry the level of gravity, like if you're Damian Lee, I don't care. Don't do this because it obviously doesn't work. But when you're Kevin Durant, if you're putting pressure on the rim by driving and then you stop short for a 5-foot, 6-foot floater that's going to preserve your body and allow you to stay healthy for a playoff run, you're still pulling in the defense by doing that. So you don't necessarily need to finish all the way at the rim and look for contact and try your hardest to get to the free throw line, at least not every time down the floor. But if you're Cam Payne or Damian Lee, just attack the goddamn basket, try to get to the free throw line, because it's a little bit different. Those guys aren't pulling a second help defender like a Booker or Durant. They're not sucking in the defense.
Yeah, the rim's not always there. That's a good point. They either have to jump into a guy at the rim or because the help comes off every time they drive. And it's a 49% shot for Booker in that area this season. So it's essentially it's a good shot, but he does shoot 71% at the rim this season. So there is a difference between those two. But there is a value in having a star player that can hit that. There's even more of a value if you have 2 or 3 star players that can hit that shot, which the Suns potentially have on a game-to-game basis if Chris Paul has it. Points per game, let's talk about his points per game. I set the over-under at 27.5, and his points per game came in at 27.8 per game this season. This is surprising, I was the only one to take the over, including the listeners, on Devin Booker points per game. So all of you are haters, obviously. But I think this was another one where, and this happens with Booker a lot, where his points per game, and I actually think it impacts award voting in some way, where his points per game are kind of low, and then he just juices the numbers in the last month and a half of the season and gets them a little higher because he just catches fire for some reason in the last month and a half of the season. And this season was another example of that, where he averaged over 30 points per game in March and has, I think, the 3rd highest points per game in March of any player in the history of the NBA. But yeah, 27.8 points per game. What are your thoughts on that, Max? Pretty impressive.
I think I remember going under because we go over every single year and lose every single year.
Yeah, that was part of the conversation, I think, yeah.
But I'm glad it went the other way this time. That's a good point that you made. He really does seem to play very well after the All-Star break and juice his numbers a little bit. Maybe he feels scorned by the NBA sometimes and comes for vengeance. But yeah, I don't know. It was a weird Booker season because of the injury, but obviously he's playing awesomely now. And he was very good to start the season too. It was also a bummer that I think he went out with that injury. He had like 55 points the game before, right, or something like that. So we could have had a much more fun Booker season, but I'm just happy he's healthy and ready to go for a postseason.
Sam, what do you think about Devin Booker?
Yeah, I think I went under just because I said over on Cam,
all the other
Ayton,
points,
and Mikal. So I was like, well, some of those points have to come from someone. So that means Booker will take like a slight step back. That's what I was thinking. I guess it's a shame here as we kind of round out the season and head towards the awards conversation. I guess we're not going to talk a ton about awards on this podcast because the Suns really aren't going to be relevant in any of these award races. But it's just a shame that Book couldn't get to like I think if he played 53 games, I think if he got to 60, he would have been basically a lock for like all NBA second team.
Yep.
Or like fifth in MVP voting or something like that.
Quite even possibly like fifth in MVP voting. Yeah, he could have. Because the Suns faced so much adversity this year, and in spite of that, they were still able to win enough games to maintain home court advantage in the Western Conference. That's an achievement, and just no one is going to be rewarded for that on the entire team. Like in any race, we're not going to have any representatives, so that kind of sucks. But on the other hand, I understand 53 games. It's less than 2/3 of the season. It's not a whole lot.
It will be hilarious though if the Suns win the title and just have nothing in the awards, like
just nothing to absolutely nothing to show for it. Yeah.
Yeah.
One All-Star in who didn't even play the All-Star game in Kevin Durant, who wasn't on the team. Super weird award season in general. It's not going to be an easy year to pick them. But yeah, he's a pretty remarkable season for him, but a weird season overall for the Suns, as I recapped earlier. So much of this season for the Suns, because of how up and down it's been, will be defined by the postseason, and as it should be when you're a contender. But yeah, I just hope people realize just how amazing 34-18. If you take out the Denver Christmas Day game where he came out 3 minutes into the game, 34-18 is what the Suns were when Devin Booker played this season, and that was with probably different starting lineups, maybe 10 different starting lineups in those games, because so many different players started. 15 players started for the Suns this season. I don't know if you guys were aware of that.
Wow.
15 different players. So just a very weird year, and Devin Booker was the only constant. They were good when he played. They were bad when he didn't, and it was just pretty obvious. But yeah, good season for him. The assists went up from last season too, which I thought was impressive.
Well, the good thing is, who cares about the stats? He got better again. This is now I don't know how many years has he been in the league, the 8th year in a row, 7th year in a row he's gotten better, which is all the credit in the world to him that he gets better every single year. It's awesome.
It's absurd.
Yeah,
it's just insane.
It really is.
I just can't believe it keeps happening. But yeah, this will be a legacy-defining postseason for him. I hate to throw the legacy word around, but this is going to be an interesting one for him. And
it's essential. The legacy word needs to be thrown around. We don't joke around with Kellen about that on our playbacks for no reason. It's a legacy playoff run for a lot of guys.
We had a section here in the over-unders of will these players be on the team post-trade deadline?
Oh, I forgot
and
about
the answer was yes or no. And the questions were DeAndre and Cameron Payne, Cameron Johnson, and Mikal Bridges. The only ones that we picked that they won't be on the team were both Max and I said Cameron Payne would be gone.
Oh, wow.
Yeah. I don't know why I don't remember why we picked on Cameron Payne. I think
because he lost his role in the Dallas series. He stopped playing.
Right.
I just thought that if they couldn't pull off a big trade, maybe they would try to, Chris Paul, you thought maybe they'd have a backup guard. Instead, they made one of the craziest trades, and we were all
junior truthers. That's what it was.
We were all wrong about Cameron Johnson and Mikal Bridges being on the team, including the listeners. And here's the craziest one. The listeners, when they voted for whether or not Mikal Bridges would be on the team post-trade deadline, 98.4% of them said he would be on the team post-trade deadline. And Mikal Bridges was traded. Yeah.
Well, especially because that was definitely after all the Kevin Durant stuff. So it's even more surprising that it was that high.
Well, I think the idea, and I think they were right to some extent, the idea was if they wanted Mikal Bridges and that's what would have gotten it done, it would be done if the Suns were willing to trade him, which was true at the time. And then the team was sold, and then they got a new owner, and everything kind of changed after that.
Did we have a Sarver-related over-under? I don't remember.
We didn't, no.
Okay.
No, we didn't. We have 3 more, and they're all pretty simple here. First one, Jay Crowder, games played for the Suns, 1. Everyone went under. Everyone got it right because he did not play a game for the Suns. And how weird was it that it took the whole season until the trade deadline for him to be traded? A very weird time for the Suns. Now he's on Milwaukee. Any thoughts on Jay Crowder, Max?
It was really, really, really annoying that he was in the team that long until we traded him in the Kevin Durant trade. Then I kind of forgot about it.
Yeah, it's true. It kind of washed away a lot of thoughts that people had on the season in general. Helped DeAndre Ayton out a little bit too, I think.
The feelings will come back a little bit if we do end up in the rematch series with Milwaukee in the finals, obviously. But man, it is just kind of funny. Like, he plays like 15 minutes per game on that team. He threw it all away. I mean, I don't know about throw it all away because I guess he got what he wanted, right? Like, he didn't have to play. He sat at home. He still got paid, and he got traded to another contender. But, like, why complain in the first place? Just to go to another team and play 15 minutes per game. I never really understood what happened.
Yeah, if the goal was to get a better contract, I'm not sure that was served by going to Milwaukee instead of most of the season.
No. Yeah, absolutely not. And he spent the whole time vague booking on Twitter, like sending out those weird vague tweets. And I do think that, yeah, I don't think he'll make more money. I want to give him some credit for being professional when he was asked about it post-trade, where he was just like, I had a really good time in Phoenix over 2 years. We were a good team, and I look forward, just kind of brushed it all under the rug and said, I'm looking forward to Milwaukee, and that was it. Do I want to know all of the details of what happened? Yeah, I'm kind of curious, but I don't think it's that relevant anymore. I cared a lot more when he was still on the Suns and the Suns couldn't trade him. Now it's just, I don't really care anymore. Suns wins for the season, and this was the one that was not set by me. It was 52.5. Max, you and I went under, and they won 45, so we hit that. Sam, you and the listeners went over on that one, and on this, I'm going to pat myself on the back because this part I went back and listened to because I wanted to remember something. I said, I think there's a chance that 52 wins could be the 1 seed in the West this year, and the Nuggets are the 1 seed with 53 wins.
Very well done.
And maybe the least intimidating 1 seed in the Western Conference of my life.
Yeah,
I mean, 53 wins. I mean, you brought this up, Sam, at the time. 53 wins is insane for a 1 seed and almost never happens, which I didn't know because I was just talking out of my ass. And it turns out it is insane, and it actually did happen this year.
But it literally never happens, and they are, I'm pretty certain, the least intimidating 1 seed of your life. I can't think of another one off the top of my head. I mean, their net rating is like, they've got like a plus. They're 6th in the NBA in net rating, I think. They've got like a +3 average point differential. That's a good team. But that is not a 1 seed like, oh, this is a scary contender team. That's like they have home court in the playoffs, but you expect them to get bounced in the second round type team in an average year, which is what makes this entire season such an anomaly. So weird.
Yeah, speaking of legacy defining, two MVPs and now the 1 seed and your full team is healthy. There's a lot riding on this postseason for Jokic, and I don't know. I really don't know how it's going to go. I could see a world, and we're going to do our playoff preview later this week. I could see a world where they actually make it out of the West. I'm not saying it's completely impossible, but I just don't. I don't think that it's something that anyone should bet on.
The Denver Nuggets net rating 2 years ago when they got, of course, Jamal Murray injury, whatever, but when they got swept by the Suns in the second round 2 years ago. +5. They were +5. Denver Nuggets net rating this year.
That's crazy.
+3.4.
That is nuts.
I did not expect that. That is crazy. That's actually very surprising. 45 wins for the Suns, though. It's just none of this matters, right?
None.
They have Kevin Durant now. It's like it's hard to even look at team stats. Like there's so much of like what we normally would do, what the normal conversations that may happen, or the type of research that I would normally do at the end of the season. You just throw that all out the window now because they made a massive trade, and we've only seen that trade actually contribute to the team for 8 games. But yeah, any thoughts on 45 wins, Max?
I could not agree more that we just throw it out. I mean, we were injured the entire season. The entire conference was just a complete and utter joke this season, to be honest with you. I mean, the 4 best teams are seeded, 4, 5, 7-6 probably. It's crazy.
Probably,
it's insane. And the 45 games. I mean, honestly, the only thing that it's worth talking about is how awesome your prediction was. That would be the 1 seed, 53 or 52 wins. That's awesome.
It's just a random guess.
It's amazing.
But yeah, I didn't anticipate the amount of injuries. I honestly thought that the conference was going to be really great and it was just going to cannibalize itself, and that's what would have led to it. Instead, it was just sort of a mid-conference the entire year, and there was so much injuries, just so many weird things, and also weird things happening, like Wiggins missing time, Ja Morant missing time, like stuff like that. I don't think anybody could have anticipated either.
To that point, with some of the other injuries in the conference, it doesn't just make it hard to look at the Suns' overall season picture and try and draw anything from it. It also makes it difficult with some of these opponents we're going to play. And, we're going to get into the Clippers series mostly on our episode later this week, although, Max, we can ask you what you think about this series before we end here. But it's just like this is a team that we played 4 times this season, and in none of those 4 times was it the exact configurations of what these two teams currently are. Like, you can't go back and just say, okay, let's watch the film of the Clippers, and here are the Kevin Durant Suns, and here are the Kawhi Leonard, Paul George, fully healthy Clippers. It just doesn't exist. We haven't seen it. So what we're about to see in the first round is going to be completely new to all of us, and it's going to require a lot of extrapolation and kind of guesswork.
Yeah. It's not an easy playoffs to preview for us, but I'm still excited to do it. And speaking of the playoffs, the last question we had is related to the playoffs, but we all answered the same, which is why I thought now would be a good time to do this podcast, because the series wins over under I put at 0.5. Will the Suns win a playoff series this year? We all said yes. And I put it at 1 because I didn't want to get overly confident after that Game 7 trauma that I went through. And we all said yes that the Suns will win, so that evens out the scores. But it does give us an opportunity to end this one by talking about the playoffs. What are your thoughts, Max, about the matchup between the Suns and the Clippers in round 1 of the playoffs this year?
Well, the fact that I was screaming at my TV yesterday when we were flirting with winning that game, I tell you something about how I feel about it. I mean, we got pretty lucky here. I mean, I don't want to run out the Clippers because obviously Kawhi is one of the few players in the league who can be the best player in a series that features Kevin Durant and Devin Booker. So you got to worry about him. Ty Lue, I have a lot of respect for him as a playoff coach after the Western Conference Finals from 2 years ago. I thought he was very good in that series. I think he will definitely scheme some things to throw us off a little bit, especially because we're very new, obviously. Kevin Durant's only played 8 games on this team, so we're still sort of figuring things out. That said, assuming George either won't come back or won't ever be himself in the series, which seems very likely at this point, there's just not going to be enough on that team, I don't think. And I also think Westbrook's just going to be... I know he's played pretty well with the Clippers so far, much better than he was playing with the Lakers, but, the playoffs are a different animal. We're not going to guard him from 3. We're going to just let him shoot as many times as he wants, and it's going to be an issue for them. I think that I'm leaning towards maybe a 6-game series, but one where we feel pretty safe the whole time. Like, it's not... We don't feel like we're going to lose. It's just the Clippers are scrappy, but overall, obviously, it's a lot better than playing the Warriors, so I'll put it that way.
Yep, I agree. We had a wild playback where we were watching that game, screaming and cheering for the Clippers the entire game.
And
couldn't
just
help ourselves in that one.
Ecstatic every time Darius Bazley touched the ball on offense because we knew that. Other than I will give Baze some credit. I mean, look, human
you got
pogo stick, absolutely. He's an athletic player on a team that has frustratingly not had a lot of like uber athletic players recently. Basically in the entire Monty Williams, James Jones era. So it's just fun to have a guy who has highlight dunks like that sometimes. That being said, is mostly a walking disaster every time he touches the ball, like at the elbow and has to initiate offense. So we were just like, yeah, just play. Like you were saying, Mike, there was a reason that Jock Landale did not close that game and Darius Bazley did. Monty knew what he was doing. He knew that it was going to be a clutch performance from him as well. Coaching
that setback 3 with like 1:20 left from Bazley. Oh, that
incredible.
Was gorgeous. My favorite shot of the year, I think.
One of the most important shots of the year. Yeah, at the same time, the Warriors were scoring 55 points in the first quarter of a game, and it was like a reminder of why they needed to lose the game, and an important reminder. And I think they came through in the clutch and actually lost That one, yes. So Sam and I, later this week, probably Thursday morning is when we're going to release it, I have a feeling. We'll do a playoff preview main feed. Everyone will have access to that one. Looking forward to doing that one. But the final tally for these over-unders, out of 15 questions, Max, you got 6 right. Sam, you got 6 right. The listeners got 7 right. And I, as the person who does the most research and kind of cheats every year, got 8 right. So
don't sell yourself short. It's not like you win every year, so you can take this one.
It's a good win.
Everyone's won once.
Again, with the 52 game prediction, I mean, come on, that's worth it by itself.
Yeah, that one, I wish I would have found a way to bet on that one. That's the only one that would have actually made us money. All of these are irrelevant. The postseason will now begin, but I was looking forward to... It's hard with the postseason to actually... Like last year was a weird one where the Suns won 64 games, and it was the best season they ever had in the regular season. Then the Game 7 loss happened. Then we had you on, Max, and it was just such a weird time to look back on how fun the season was. Nobody was ready to do it. So this year I was like, we got to do it before the playoffs, because we have to appreciate the weird season that we just had and at least talk about it before the postseason begins. It's a whole new season, as everyone says. The postseason is completely different. But thank you so much, Max, for joining us. I know you don't really do a lot of stuff publicly, but do you have anything that you want to tell the people about before we end this one?
Thanks so much for having me. No, I just follow my ex-podcast partner, current friend, David Nash, on Twitter, the 4 Point Play. He still provides awesome breakdowns and such, even though we don't pod that much anymore. But yeah, that's about it for me. It was fun, guys. Thank you.
Appreciate you, Max. And yes, we'll be back soon.